morning, ladies and coronavirus germs. This is your ticker guy on the 26th. Well, we'll see what we have here for podcast the next few days. Getting rather stupid in the political arena. But I want to point a few things out. First off, that U.S. is paying hospitals $39,000 for every patient diagnosed with COVID-19. Gee, that wouldn't be a reason to diagnose everybody with COVID-19, right? It wouldn't be a reason to put on death certificates, even if it was, well, you had it, but that's not what killed you. Nah, it wouldn't be anything like that. And then you have New York, New Jersey, and California, who all ordered nursing homes to take coronavirus patients. Now, can I ask under what authority a state can do something like that? Has anybody thought about that? Where under what authority? What is it? We claim that states have this licensing authority when it comes to things like bars, right? The state can say, well, you have to close your bar because there's a virus. Okay. You have to close your restaurant because, well, there's a virus. Okay. Nice theory. And we all go along like good little sheep, right? So we close our bars. But now, what happens when the mandate isn't negative? What happens when the mandate goes the other way around? And they say, oh, by the way, you have to take this infectious person who is likely to kill half the residents in your building, and you have to let them live there. And you can't do anything about it. We quarantine under longstanding legitimate civil authority sick people. You can't quarantine a well person. It's not a quarantine. It's, called imprisonment because it's what it is. But it's not a quarantine because a quarantine is something you lay on a ill person to prevent them from transmitting a disease. In this case, we didn't prevent people from transmitting disease. We made them transmit disease. And we call this the authority of the state. I don't know about that. I'm very curious as to exactly what authority a state has to do something like that, and why a nursing home would put up with it. Nobody is talking about that. No one. No one is talking about the fact that huge percentages, half of all the deaths from COVID-19 are people coming on nursing homes. Well, if half the deaths are people coming on nursing homes, then maybe you could explain to me how that half is happening and why that's not essentially homicide, especially when you're forcibly discharging people into nursing homes that have a virus that is dangerous to people with compromised immune systems and compromised medical statuses. Do we call things what they are anymore? I'm not so sure. It sounds to me like we don't. But that's exactly what's going on. There's another interesting thing. I want to put my scatter chart up, my effective R, back computed R chart. You'll notice right at the end that there's an upward movement. Remember, I had said that when you change the conditions of the test, you're going to get a dislocation. Well, we've gotten one in the last few days. It's just literally over the last few days, so the last 3 or 4 days, there has been a sharp move upward. And it's noisy, but it's significant in these transmission rates. And you say, well, where the blankety blank is that coming from? Well, I'll tell you where it's coming from. They've changed the testing regime. Now, I'm not sure exactly what they've done. My guess is that this is part of this test thing. But you watch how there will be particularly Democrat governors and others who will try to use this as an argument for not releasing lockdowns. Because, the transmission rate's going up. Well, wait a minute. The transmission rate's going up, but we're locked down and businesses are closed. Then your measures are ineffective, right? Remember, the issue is, this is kind of like pray away the gay, right? You pray because if you pray, then you'll stop being gay. And if it doesn't work, pray harder. Yeah, praying obviously didn't work very well, so you were praying wrong. Pray harder. Okay. Yeah, we'll see how that works. CBO estimates, I was reviewing them yesterday, trying to make some sense out of some of the numbers that they're putting together. They're thinking that we could have a federal deficit. And remember, folks, they're a fiscal year, so this is through September 30th. Okay. They're thinking we could have a fiscal deficit of $3.5 trillion. Excuse me? How much? And at the same time, they're projecting a second quarter GDP contraction of 40%, 40. That, by the way, might actually break the 1920-21 contraction, the depression that wasn't. It was a depression. It was the largest crash in industrial output ever in the history of the United States. Well, so far. we may have just beaten it, but it was. It also was the fastest recovery ever either. And one of the reasons was the Federal Reserve actually raised interest rates. They didn't slam them to zero. They didn't play games with money printing. They actually raised interest rates and forced all the people who had over-levered to go bankrupt, which they promptly did. And the result of that was the quickest recovery in the history of the United States. So you got both. You got the worst crash and the quickest recovery. Well, funny how that works, right? Yeah, well, that's what we got. Don't bet on that happening this time around. You'd probably lose that bet. So that's another thing to think about here. And I think that's, again, something to put some thought into. But this data dislocation, folks, is very interesting. Donald Trump has a really nasty electoral problem right now. First one is that I don't know what he was thinking he was doing with regards to Georgia and Governor Kemp. Actually, I do. I commented on it the other day. That was political payback for Kemp appointing the quote-unquote wrong person as a senator. That's the only logical conclusion you can come to with regards to what Trump was doing. But for him to wield that in this fashion and at this time is just crazy. Okay, it's just flat out crazy. And it's funny how you have so many screaming Karens running around. It's still on my Twitter news feed and everywhere else. Oh my God, you're going to get everybody killed. Well, actually, no, we're not going to get everybody killed. Look, I regret loss of life in the general sense, except when it's a tyrant who deserves to be on the end of a rope and gets his just desserts after he's had due process, he or she has had due process of law. Just like I was not sorry when any one of a number of convicted murderers who had due process of law and clearly did it, okay, which, sometimes, sometimes there's a clean question as to whether or not it was, ginned up charges or whatever. But there's plenty of people who committed murder, and they clearly did it. They're guilty. And if they twist on the end of a rope or get old Sparky or whatever have you, we've caned you gently, we'll strap you down in a gurney and throw poison down your veins. What kind of stupid is that? Okay? Come on, make it fun. Sell some tickets. I actually sort of like the idea of the guillotine. It's fast, it's painless, and it's very certain. But, we've got all the screaming Karens out there. Oh, you're going to kill people. No, I'll tell you what's killing people. There are people who right now, over the last month and a half, have had a really weird headache that won't go away, and they can't seem to figure out what's going on with that. And they would normally go to the doc and get checked out, and the doc would find that they have a brain aneurysm, which, by the way, is very dangerous. And brain aneurysm, if untreated, it bursts, you're dead. You just literally drop dead in the middle of the street. But, the solution to this is we do surgery. But unfortunately, it's not an emergency because you just have a headache. And so we can't do the imaging study. We can't do the diagnostics. And as a result, you fall over dead when you're going to get your mail. That'll be COVID-19. We'll call it COVID-19. Even though you died of brain aneurysm. Yeah. How many people who had some kind of routine diagnostic that would have caught some kind of cancer and now haven't? And you say, well, it's not that big a deal. Oh, really? A month delay is not a big deal. Tell that to somebody who has something at stage 1, goes stage 2 or stage 3. and the mortality rate for that particular cancer goes from 5% to 40. Yeah, that one doesn't count, right? Yeah, okay, all right. If you say so. It's personal anecdote on that. My mother had some issues a number of years ago, and went to the doc, and the doc said, "Hey, we need to do a CT on this and abdominal things." And she's in her 80s. Okay, so she goes and she has a CT done, and of course, CT's non-invasive. It's not an emergency. She just doesn't feel so good, So they do the CT, and they're, oops, there's a tumor in your colon. At least we're pretty sure it is. So, they all right, now we're going to have to do some things. And so up we go. We, throw her on the table, do the surgery, and by God, there it is. They chop it out. Well, she refused chemo and radiation and lived almost another 2 years. And the interesting thing about it was that, as I've pointed out in podcasts before, with the exception of about the last 2 weeks or so, she actually lived. Okay, she wasn't flat on her back. She wasn't debilitated. She went about and did her everyday things, enjoyed life for the most part. I mean, there were good days and bad days, but for the most part, she enjoyed life. And who knows how much more time she would have gotten. I mean, listen, when you're in your 80s, every day you wake up is a day that you are not owed by anybody. So, all those things happened, right? But think about this. So in the era of COVID-19, she can't go get that diagnostic because you can't do that. There's pandemic. So what if you don't go do it? Well, now, by the time that we find the cancer, a month or 2 months later, it's all over you. It's in your liver. It's in your it's everywhere. It's all over your abdomen. And now you don't get 18 months. Now we pretty much can't operate on it, and 2 or 3 months later you're dead. And by the way, it's a really bad way to go too. Okay, I mean as it was, like I said, she had 2 bad weeks. Wasn't a bad way to go. It came back and it got her, and but it stayed mostly confined to her colon. Only because they chopped that piece out. Well, how many people have we done that to, folks? You don't know. You don't know. But remember, 7,700 people a day in America die. Okay? So we have accelerated that. And then we've deliberately accelerated death for people in nursing homes by forcing nursing homes to take COVID patients who we know are very dangerous to other elder Americans with pre-existing conditions. We've done all sorts of stupid things during this so-called pandemic. And now we've got the latest scam is the testing numbers. And they're, oh boy, you wait, you watch, folks, because we're now seeing, some of these numbers are actually kind of interesting the last few days. I know I haven't put the chart up in a while. And the reason I haven't put it up is that for the most part, things have been stable, and I've been kind of doing other things anyway. But, it's kind of interesting because I look at some of these states, and on a national basis, my back computed R up until the 22nd was under 1. And then 23rd, 24th, 25th was 106, 1.15, and 1.32. Now, 1.32 is a very interesting number because 1.32 goes all the way back to 4 April. Okay, so 3 weeks, roughly, is the last time that we saw a number that high. It was 1.43 then. So this is kind of an interesting thing. Now on my less noisy chart, it's barely started to tick up, but the more sensitive computation, which is more noisy, okay, is showing a 1.32. And the other thing that's interesting is that the death rate, however, is holding the delta is holding right around 4% ish. Okay, 4, and that's actually. It's that's noisy too, but that's been in that 4 to 5% area since the 18th. So that hasn't changed much, and that's down quite a bit. Interestingly enough, Sweden's R number, back computed R number, is also going up a little bit. Not hugely, but it is. And that is quite interesting to me for a number of reasons, not the least of which is they didn't lock anything down, but they have these little spikes here and there. Okay, you look back at like 8 April, and they had a spike in the 1.3, 1.5 area. And then they had another one on the 16th, 17th around 1.3. Then they came back down right around 1.0 and a little bit less. And now they've had another one up to 1.27. But their data is late, okay? So I've only got through 23 April for them. And then the other thing that I think is quite interesting is that the states that have not relaxed anything, in fact, the states that supposedly were doing the best, okay, New York, 1.36 as of yesterday. Okay, very large increase, 10,000 new cases detected. And again, this sort of dislocation move, remember what I said, folks, is that when you start to see changes in testing methodology, you'll get one-time dislocations, and then they'll go away. So unfortunately, the smoothing that I have in this back computation has a 5-day period in it. So we won't know whether this is a one-time dislocation for another middle of the end of the week. We'll know. Okay, I think it is. I think this is a change in testing paradigm, but I can't be sure, and won't be able to be sure until that happens. And and enough time passes that I can look at it and say, okay, yeah, you're right. Looking at the higher frequency data, just the raw numbers, it does look like there is a step function here, but again, very difficult to be absolutely certain. And one of the things that I think is quite interesting is that it's showing up pretty much everywhere I look, and that implies that it's not a community thing. Okay, there's something else going on here, and that would imply that this is part of the so-called push to make sure that anybody who wants a test can get a test anytime they want to get a test. And oh, by the way, we're going to record all positives, whether they're symptomatic or not. And it also goes to the prevalence of seropositivity. Again, we have another one out of Miami showing that is in fact the case, and that basically these lockdowns and these mitigation factors, folks, are worthless. Okay, they didn't stop the spread. They didn't slow it down to any significant degree at all. In fact, quite the opposite. If anything, they sped it up. Now, that's rather interesting, isn't it? You think about that. What if you actually sped it up by forcing people to stay inside around other family members, and then they gave it to somebody in the grocery store or whatever? This, by the way, is why you don't quarantine, so-called quarantine, imprison people who are not sick. Another point, and this I think will probably be one of the last ones. There's another study out. Huge number of prisoners in state prisons have COVID. Oh, big shock, right? Respiratory virus in a jail. However, almost none of them got sick. Essentially, all of them got it, but huge numbers of state prisoners got it, but they didn't get sick. And so again, what we're back to is this virus that behaves unlike other viruses, in that it is a respiratory virus, but it doesn't make you ill. Interestingly enough, what other virus does behave this way? Guess what it would be? It would be other coronaviruses that cause colds. Most people get colds, get light sniffles, a little bit of head congestion, whatever have you. But it's not at all uncommon if you actually do epidemiological surveys for people to get a coronavirus, a cold virus. They get it, but they don't get sick at all. Okay, we're exposed to dozens, if not hundreds, of these every year. Of course, coronaviruses are not all colds. There's only 20% or so of them are coronaviruses. The rest are usually rhinoviruses. But again, we have viral exposure all the time. Our body is full of viruses. And yet that activity that's generated by a virus is actually, in the general case, a very good thing because it keeps our immune system going. And if you talk to actual immunologists and people who actually have had some training and have some knowledge of this, they'll tell you this, that this is not necessarily a bad thing, and in many ways is a good thing. But, hey, listen, it wouldn't be like governors would concentrate, the death angel into nursing homes on purpose, right? And then it wouldn't be that people would classify deaths as COVID-19 when they're really not, because COVID-19 deaths get another $39,000 from the federal government, right? Each. Right? No, nothing like that would be going on. And we'll see whether or not in the next week we start hearing the screaming Karens coming out and saying that this back computed R spike is caused to leave the lockdowns in place. Well, problem with that is that you're going to have too many states that have gone the other way by now. And politically, this is going to become an untenable situation because my prediction, and we'll see whether or not I'm right, okay, because you have several states that are essentially unlocking the doors this week or have already started doing so, Georgia being one, Tennessee being another. If there is no huge spike in cases in those areas, then and sick cases, not just people who pop positive on tests, but people who actually start stuffing hospital emergency rooms and stuff. If you don't see that, then the data is in. Okay, and my expectation is that that's exactly what you're going to see. That yes, there are people going to get ill, people are going to get very badly sick, and there will be people who die. But that happens every day, and we just, whether we like it or not, we can't go back through this. And when we get another month or two into this, this is going to be poison for the Republican Party and for Donald Trump on a political level, because it will be evident to his base, which are the only people that matter, folks. They're going to stay home, okay? Come November, they're not going to vote for him. They're not going to vote for Biden, although it won't be for Biden. It'll be whoever is the second person on the ticket. They're just going to stay home, and he's going to lose, because you've got enough people that are running around with face masks on and scared out of their minds that no matter what you do at this point, you could say the entire thing's it's over, it's a scam. You could, it doesn't matter how you phrase it, okay? The storm is over, come out of your house, all right? A huge percentage of the population is not going to do it. They're not going to go to the restaurant, they're not going to go to the bar, they're not going to buy anything. And that's I mean, when you get down to it, there's your economy, okay? There it goes. So expect some real trouble in the markets here in the coming months. I don't think that the rally is over, but I think that as you get into, especially coming in the end of the summer and beginning of the fall, I think you're going to see two Americas. You're going to see people still running around with masks on and gloves, and then you're going to see people like me that never put them on in the first place. And there'll be opportunities for people like me, okay? Because if I want to go travel, I'm going to be able to get very cheap hotel rooms at places that I normally could not. But for the people on the receiving end of that, it's going to suck because another 6 months they're not going to be in business. So I'm your ticker guy, and I'll be with you soon.